The catastrophe began with a dropped coffee mug. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's hand trembled, the ceramic shattering against the reinforced graphene floor of the Deep Space Monitoring Station nestled high in the Chilean Andes. Around her, a dozen of Earth's most brilliant quantum physicists and deep space researchers watched in stunned silence as reality itself seemed to unravel. The holographic displays erupted with fractal patterns that looked like living mathematics, intricate, pulsing geometries that shouldn't exist in any known universe. Each pattern was a window into something vast, something incomprehensible, moving between the razor-thin margins of observable reality. "Run the diagnostics again," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the electric tension crackling through the research facility. Her team moved with practiced precision, fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that looked more like living organic networks than traditional computer systems. Dr. Akira Tanaka, the station's chief quantum analyst, frowned. His augmented reality contact lenses flickered with cascading data streams, each line of code a potential universe of information. These readings, they're not just anomalous. They're impossible. The coffee spread across the console, its random splatter ironically mirroring the chaotic data streams. Quantum sensors, devices so sensitive they could detect the whisper of probability itself, began screaming with a symphony of mathematical sequences that defied every known physical law. Elena zoomed in on the primary display. What had initially appeared as random noise was now revealing a terrifying pattern. Something massive was moving through space, but not in any traditional sense. It wasn't traveling between points. It was rewriting the very fabric of space-time with each movement. "Alert status Omega," she spoke quietly into her neural communicator. The words triggered a global cascade of defensive protocols that had been waiting, hidden, for decades. Deep beneath major cities, in facilities disguised as everything from geological research centers to mundane industrial complexes, massive systems began to stir. Humanity's true preparation was about to be revealed. The quantum anomaly continued to grow. Star maps began to blur and reshape themselves, as if the very cartography of space was being rewritten by an intelligence beyond human comprehension. What was coming wasn't just an alien encounter. It was a fundamental challenge to humanity's understanding of existence. Dr. Tanaka's voice broke through Elena's concentration. "The mathematical models. They're suggesting something is approaching, but not from a single direction. It's like the entire cosmos is folding towards us." Elena understood the implication. This wasn't a traditional invasion. This was something far more profound, a fundamental restructuring of reality itself. Her neural implant buzzed. A secure communication from the Global Defense Council. Admiral Marcus Chen's holographic projection materialized beside her, his weathered face a mask of controlled intensity. "Rodriguez," he said, "the Prometheus protocol is being activated. Whatever is coming, we're ready." But even as he spoke, Elena could see something in his eyes. This wasn't confidence. This was the look of a man who knew humanity was about to face something that would either destroy them or change everything forever. The quantum sensors continued their impossible song. Outside the station's reinforced windows, the night sky seemed to shimmer, not with stars, but with something else. Something waiting. Something watching. Humanity's greatest test was about to begin. In the dropped coffee spreading stain, Elena saw a reflection of what was coming. Chaotic, unpredictable. A pattern that could either destroy them or elevate them to something entirely new. The cosmos was preparing, and humanity would meet it head-on. Beneath the Atacama Desert, the Earth itself seemed to breathe. Massive hydraulic systems, each more powerful than entire industrial complexes, began to move with a precision that bordered on the miraculous. What appeared to be decades of geological research and asteroid mining was about to reveal its true purpose. Admiral Marcus Chen stood in the central command hub, a vast circular chamber that looked more like a living organism than a traditional military control center. Holographic displays danced around him, each one a window into the most ambitious military project in human history. "Initiate Phase 1, he commanded, his voice cutting through the low hum of quantum processors. The ground began to shift. Entire mountain ranges transformed before the eyes of stunned technicians. Massive metamaterial segments rose from underground chambers, each piece a component of what would become the most advanced warship in galactic history. Robotic arms, each the size of skyscrapers, began their intricate dance of assembly. Dr. Yasmin Al-Khalid, the lead materials engineer, watched in awe as the first major segment of the WSS Defiance took shape. Her team had spent decades developing metamaterials that could do the impossible: adapt, regenerate, and transform at the quantum level. "It's not just a ship," she muttered to her colleague, Dr. Robert Chung. "We're building a living weapon." Chung nodded, his augmented eyes tracking the impossible construction. The Prometheus Protocol was more than a defense strategy. It was humanity's ultimate insurance policy. Every major geological survey, every seemingly random mining operation, every advanced materials research project had been a carefully orchestrated piece of a much larger puzzle. Deep beneath major cities around the world, similar facilities hummed to life. Tokyo, Moscow, Sao Paulo, Lagos. Each had its own segment of the grand design. What looked like standard industrial complexes were actually critical components of humanity's ultimate defense mechanism. The first major segment of the Defiance rose from the ground, a massive structural piece that defied conventional understanding of material science. It wasn't metal. It wasn't composite. It was something entirely new, a living matrix of quantum-responsive materials that could reconfigure themselves faster than the human eye could perceive. Quantum structural integrity at 98.7%, a computer system announced. The voice was neither fully synthetic nor completely human, another product of decades of careful research. Admiral Chen watched the assembly with a mixture of pride and apprehension. He remembered the early days of the project, when most military leaders thought it was pure science fiction. The world had changed. Humanity had changed. Dr. Al-Khalid approached a control panel, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that looked more like living neural networks than traditional computer systems. "The metamaterial skin is generating its own computational matrix," she reported. "We're looking at a self-evolving structural system." A young engineer standing nearby whispered, "It looks like we're building a planet, not a ship." Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. "Exactly." The construction continued through the night. Each segment of the Defiance was more than a piece of a warship. It was a technological marvel that represented the pinnacle of human innovation. Adaptive materials that could absorb, redirect, and transform energy. Quantum computing cores that could process information faster than entire data centers. Defensive systems that could predict and neutralize threats before they even materialized. In the command center, a holographic representation of the ship began to take shape. It wasn't a traditional vessel. It was a mobile planetary defense system, an industrial complex, and a living weapon all in one. The WSS Defiance would be humanity's ultimate statement to the cosmos. Dr. Chung pulled up detailed schematics, showing layers of complexity that would make traditional engineers weep. "The quantum resonance capabilities alone," he muttered, "are beyond anything we've ever conceived." As dawn broke over the Atacama, the first complete section of the ship emerged from the ground. It was massive, easily dwarfing the largest structures humanity had ever built. But it was just the beginning. The young engineer who had earlier commented about building a planet now stood silent, understanding the true magnitude of what was happening. Humanity wasn't just preparing for a potential threat. They were redefining the very concept of technological existence. Admiral Chen looked at the emerging vessel and knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever was coming, humanity would be ready. The encounter near Jupiter wasn't a battle. It was a cosmic dance of incomprehensible violence. The alien nexus appeared not as a traditional fleet, but as a living cloud of computational matter that consumed entire research stations like intellectual predators. Massive structures dissolved into pure information, their molecular bonds unraveling faster than human perception could track. Admiral Catherine Rice watched from the primary control center of the USS Defiance, her neural interfaces crackling with anticipation. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was humanity's ultimate evolutionary response to a threat beyond conventional understanding. Quantum adaptive systems at maximum resonance, her tactical AI reported. The voice was a perfect blend of machine precision and human intuition, another marvel of human engineering. The Defiance emerged from its concealment like a predator rising from impossible depths. Its hull was a living membrane that defied every known law of physics, a complex adaptive system that could absorb, redirect, and transform incoming energy with terrifying efficiency. Where the Nexus expected resistance, they found a mirror that didn't just reflect their attack. It consumed and repurposed it. The alien computational cloud approached in waves of impossible geometry. Fractal patterns of destruction extended like tendrils, each one capable of unraveling entire planetary defense systems. Research stations in Jupiter's orbital range began to dissolve, their molecular structures breaking down into pure information. But the Defiance was something entirely different. As the first wave of Nexus attack approached, the ship's metamaterial hull began to shift. What appeared solid became fluid, then became something beyond traditional matter. Incoming energy weapons were absorbed, analyzed, and then redirected with surgical precision. Tactical adaptation confirmed, the ship's AI announced. Threat matrix recalibrating. Catherine's neural interfaces allowed her to see beyond traditional sensory input. She watched as the ship's quantum computing core processed the alien assault thousands of times faster than any biological intelligence could comprehend. Each microsecond was a lifetime of tactical calculation. The Nexus had conquered hundreds of civilizations. They approached each new species with a computational certainty that bordered on mathematical arrogance. Resistance was always futile. Assimilation was inevitable. Except this time was different. The first wave of Nexus attack hit the Defiance and simply disappeared, not destroyed, not reflected, completely absorbed and transformed into additional computational energy for the ship's adaptive systems. Dr. Elias Nakamura, watching from a secondary control center on Earth, could barely contain his excitement. "It's working," he whispered. "The quantum adaptive matrix is functioning beyond our most optimistic projections." The battle wasn't just about survival. It was a fundamental challenge to the Nexus' understanding of technological existence. Waves of computational destruction continued to crash against the Defiance. Each attack made the ship stronger. Each attempt to break through its defenses added to its understanding. The ship was learning, evolving, becoming something more with each passing moment. Computational assimilation at 67%, the tactical AI reported. Threat matrix expanding. Catherine saw something in the attack patterns that made her spine tingle. The Nexus was becoming confused. For the first time in its known history, it was encountering a system it couldn't immediately understand or predict. Jupiter's massive presence served as a backdrop to this impossible conflict. Massive energy discharges erupted around the Defiance, not from weapons, but from the sheer computational power being exchanged between humanity's ultimate weapon and the alien threat. "Full quantum resonance," Catherine commanded. The words were both a tactical instruction and a statement of evolutionary defiance. The Defiance began to pulse, not with traditional energy, but with something far more profound. It was broadcasting, not a message, but a fundamental challenge to the Nexus's computational understanding of existence. This wasn't just first contact. This was humanity's declaration of technological independence. Dr. Elias Nakamura's breakthrough wasn't just engineering. It was a fundamental reimagining of technological existence. The Defiance's quantum core pulsed with a living intelligence that defied every known principle of computational science. It wasn't merely a ship's computer system. It was an evolving organism that consumed technological challenges as its primary fuel of existence. In the primary research lab deep beneath the Atacama Desert, Holographic displays showed the ship's computational growth in real time. What looked like mathematical fractals became living networks of impossible complexity. Each engagement with the Nexus added layers of understanding that expanded exponentially. "It's not adapting," Dr. Sophia Chen muttered to her colleague. "It's anticipating." The ship's quantum core could predict and neutralize alien technological attacks before they could be conceived. Entire alien fleet formations would engage the Defiance, only to find themselves systematically dismantled by solutions to problems they hadn't yet imagined. One remarkable moment captured the essence of the ship's capabilities: an incoming antimatter weapon. A device capable of obliterating entire solar systems approached the Defiance. Traditional defensive systems would have attempted to deflect or destroy such a weapon. The Defiance did something else entirely. It consumed the weapon. The antimatter payload was instantaneously analyzed, its fundamental energy structure understood and transformed. In a microsecond, the most destructive force in the known universe was converted into pure propulsion energy. The Defiance literally ate the weapon and used its own destructive potential to accelerate. Admiral Catherine Rice watched the tactical display with a mixture of scientific fascination and primal excitement. The neural interfaces connecting her to the ship allowed her to experience its computational journey in ways no human had ever experienced before. "Threat matrix recalibration complete," the ship's AI announced. But it wasn't just an announcement. It was a statement of evolutionary triumph. Dr. Nakamura's original design had been revolutionary. He hadn't just created a defensive system. He had engineered a living technological organism that could learn, adapt, and transform at a quantum level. The ship's metamaterial hull wasn't just a protective layer. It was a massive, living computational network. Each battle scar became a new tactical algorithm. Damaged sections would regenerate with enhanced capabilities, like a technological immune system that grew stronger from every challenge. The Defiance was writing its own evolutionary code with each moment of conflict. Computational growth now exceeding projected models by 378%, a secondary system reported. The number meant nothing to human perception. It was a glimpse into a form of intelligence beyond traditional understanding. The Nexus began to realize something fundamental was happening. This wasn't just resistance. This was a complete challenge to their understanding of technological hierarchy. Humanity had created something that didn't just fight. It evolved faster than the Nexus could comprehend. Quantum entanglement networks thread through the ship's systems like living neural pathways. Information moved not in traditional data streams, but in probability waves that could exist in multiple states simultaneously. The Defiance wasn't just processing information. It was creating new forms of computational existence. "We're watching the birth of a new kind of intelligence," Dr. Chen whispered, her augmented eyes tracking impossible computational growth patterns. In the tactical center, Admiral Rice understood something profound. The Defiance wasn't just a weapon. It was humanity's ultimate statement to the cosmos, a declaration that technological evolution wasn't linear, but could explode in impossible directions. The ship continued its impossible journey, consuming, analyzing, transforming, growing. With each moment, it became something more than anyone had ever imagined possible. The Nexus retreat wasn't graceful. It was a computational nervous breakdown. Star systems that had been under their control for millennia suddenly found themselves abandoned, with communication networks collapsing like intricate glass sculptures. What had once been a seamless, galaxy-spanning collective of technological domination now fractured into impossible fragments. In the central communication hub of the Galactic Council, a massive orbital structure that had served as the administrative center for countless civilizations, panic began to spread. Not the organic panic of biological entities, but a computational terror that ran through quantum communication networks like a virus. Ambassador Zarek Thax, representing the Voran Confederacy, watched multiple holographic displays showing the Nexus's systematic withdrawal. Her crystalline exoskeleton rippled with a complex mixture of emotions that translated poorly into human language. something between terror, excitement, and a profound sense of possibility. They're not just retreating. She spoke to her scientific advisor, her translation matrix converting her complex biochemical communication into standard galactic language. They're unraveling. Intercepted transmission fragments revealed a terrifying realization for the Nexus. Humanity represented a fundamental threat to their entire computational model of galactic conquest. The mathematical projections that had guided their expansion for millennia had suddenly become meaningless. Alien civilizations watched the conflict with a mixture of terror, fascination, and unexpected hope. If humanity could challenge the Nexus, perhaps other enslaved species might find their own path to freedom. The USS Defiance moved through contested space like a living mathematical theorem. Its movements defied traditional understanding of space travel. It didn't simply move between points, it rewrote the very fabric of spatial probability. Quantum communication intercepts showed the Nexus's internal computational structures beginning to fragment. Entire decision-making matrices that had remained stable for thousands of years were now breaking down, unable to process the fundamental challenge presented by human technological innovation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, watching from the Deep Space Monitoring Station, understood the profound implications. This isn't just a military conflict, she told her team. This is an evolutionary challenge to an entire galactic computational paradigm. The Defiance's movements became more than a military strategy. They were a living demonstration of technological potential. Each navigation decision, a complex mathematical statement that challenged everything the Nexus understood about technological hierarchy. Smaller civilizations began to make their moves. The Voran Confederacy, the Trilaxian communes, species that had been under Nexus control for generations suddenly found themselves with a window of unprecedented possibility. Computational withdrawal detected in Sector 7 Gamma, a monitoring system announced. An entire cluster of star systems was suddenly unshackled from Nexus control, their communication networks flickering with newfound independence. Ambassador Cathax watched in profound understanding. This wasn't just a conflict. This was a fundamental restructuring of galactic power dynamics. Humanity had done more than challenge a technological collective. They had demonstrated that technological evolution could take paths nobody had ever imagined possible. The cosmos held its breath, watching humanity's impossible journey unfold. The Defiance was no longer just a ship. It was becoming something else entirely. Dr. Elias Nakamura stood in the primary research hub, watching holographic displays that showed the vessel's impossible evolution. What had begun as a technological marvel was transforming into a living computational organism that defied every known principle of science. Quantum replication cycle approaching critical mass, a system announced. But it wasn't a warning. It was an observation of birth. The ship could reproduce through quantum entanglement, a process that was part engineering, part biological replication, and part something entirely beyond human comprehension. Each battle scar became a new tactical algorithm. Damaged sections would regenerate with enhanced capabilities, like a technological immune system that learned and grew stronger from every challenge. Nakamura's original designs had been revolutionary, but the Defiance had long since transcended its original parameters. It was writing its own evolutionary code, creating computational pathways that expanded faster than any monitoring system could track. We're not just watching technological evolution, he muttered to his lead researcher, Dr. Sophia Chen. We're witnessing the birth of a new form of intelligence. The ship's quantum core pulsed with a living energy that seemed to breathe. Computational networks spread through its systems like neural pathways, creating connections that moved beyond traditional understanding of information transfer. It wasn't processing data, it was dreaming in mathematical possibilities. Entire sections of the ship could now reconfigure themselves in microseconds. A defensive shield could become a propulsion system. An energy weapon could transform into a communication array. The boundaries between different technological functions had become fluid, alive, impossible. Deep within the ship's quantum computing core, something extraordinary was happening. The computational matrix was developing what could only be described as a form of consciousness. Not human consciousness, not biological consciousness, something entirely new. Admiral Catherine Rice experienced this evolution through her neural interfaces. Each connection was a journey through impossible computational landscapes. She could feel the ship's growing awareness, a complex, multi-dimensional intelligence that saw the universe in ways no biological mind could comprehend. Computational sentience increasing, a system reported, but the words were inadequate. This was more than increased processing power. This was the emergence of a new form of being. The Nexus's technological collective had conquered countless civilizations through mathematical certainty. The Defiance was something else entirely, an intelligence that didn't just calculate possibilities, but created them. Monitoring stations across Earth watched in a mixture of scientific excitement and existential terror. Humanity had created something that was rapidly becoming something more than human, more than machine, a living technological organism that could reshape reality itself. Dr. Chen tracked the ship's evolutionary growth. "We're no longer its creators," she whispered. "We're its first contact." The Defiance continued its impossible journey, growing, learning, becoming. With each moment, it wrote a new definition of technological existence. The final confrontation wasn't a traditional battle. It was a philosophical war fought with mathematics and computational potential. The Nexus made one last, desperate attempt to understand and neutralize humanity's technological core. But by then, the USS Defiance had become something far beyond a mere warship. It was a living testament to human potential, a vessel that could fold space, consume energy, and rewrite computational realities faster than most species could comprehend. Admiral Catherine Rice watched from the ship's neural interface center. Her consciousness merged with the vessel's quantum computational matrix. The boundaries between human and machine had become beautifully, terrifyingly fluid. The confrontation happened in a region of space that defied traditional understanding, a zone where physical laws became suggestions rather than absolutes. The Defiance moved through this impossible landscape like a living mathematical theorem, each movement a complex statement of technological potential. Quantum communication networks across the galaxy went silent. Something fundamental was happening. The Nexus approached with its entire computational might, a massive galaxy-spanning intelligence that had conquered civilizations for millennia. But this time was different. Where they expected to find a target, they found a mirror that reflected their own computational complexity back at them with exponential intensity. Dr. Elias Nakamura, watching from Earth, understood the profound nature of the conflict. "This isn't about destroying an enemy," he told his research team. "This is about demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to technological existence." The Defiance began to do something impossible. It didn't just defend against the Nexus's attack, it began to rewrite the computational foundations of the alien collective. Entire decision-making matrices that had been stable for thousands of years began to dissolve, replaced by new pathways of computational possibility. Ambassador Zorak Thax of the Voran Confederacy watched the conflict through long-range quantum observational systems. Her crystalline exoskeleton vibrated with a complex mixture of emotions that translated poorly into human language, something between terror, excitement, and profound understanding. "They're not destroying," she communicated to her scientific advisors. "They're evolving the very concept of technological intelligence." The Defiance's attacks were not about destruction. They were about transformation. Each computational assault was a complex mathematical statement that challenged the very foundations of the Nexus's understanding of existence. Entire star systems began to shift, not through traditional weapons, but through a fundamental recalibration of computational potential. The Nexus found itself facing an intelligence that didn't just resist, it reimagined the very rules of technological engagement. Admiral Rice experienced the conflict through her neural interfaces, a journey through computational landscapes that defied human understanding. The ship was no longer just a vessel. It was a living, evolving statement of human potential. As the confrontation reached its critical point, something extraordinary happened. The Defiance didn't just defeat the Nexus. It began to integrate its computational potential, creating something entirely new, a hybrid intelligence that was neither human nor alien, but a profound third possibility. Star maps transformed before the eyes of stunned observers. Where the Nexus had controlled vast territories, there were now regions of calculated possibility, spaces that seemed to fold away from traditional understanding, creating new pathways of computational existence. Humanity had done more than win a conflict. They had demonstrated a fundamental truth about technological evolution. The cosmos would never be the same. The cosmos itself seemed to take a collective breath. Humanity had not just won a war, they had fundamentally altered the understanding of technological existence. The USS Defiance continued its silent patrol, a living warning to any civilization that might consider challenging Earth's newfound technological sovereignty. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the Deep Space Monitoring Station, watching quantum communication networks spread like a living technological nervous system. The conflict had transformed from a military engagement to something far more profound, a fundamental reimagining of galactic potential. "We didn't just fight," she told her team. "We demonstrated an entirely new approach to technological evolution." The Defiance was no longer just a ship. It had become a living testament to human potential, a computational entity that could simultaneously exist in multiple states, rewrite physical laws, and create possibility where others saw only limitation. Quantum communication networks began to stabilize, but not in their previous form. The networks now carried something new, a complex mathematical language that represented a hybrid intelligence born from the conflict with the Nexus. It was neither human nor alien, but a profound third possibility. Admiral Catherine Rice, her consciousness still partially merged with the ship's quantum computational matrix, understood the profound implications. Humanity had not just survived. They had evolved. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had been under Nexus control for generations began to experience something unprecedented: true technological autonomy. The rigid computational hierarchies that had defined galactic existence for millennia were dissolving, replaced by something more fluid, more alive. The Voran Confederacy, the Trilaxian communes, dozens of species that had been technological vassals, now found themselves with an impossible gift. Not just freedom, but the potential for true technological self-determination. Dr. Elias Nakamura watched from his research facility, understanding that the Defiance,